Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. Still not back in the pub, hopefully soon come, but we are still in self-isolation. Today it's me, Pato and Dougie, Critchley, because Chris Hamill is off sunning it in the rain in his back garden. He has chosen a terrible week for weather to take off because you are staying inside anyway, Hamill. Let's jump straight into the first question then, no messing about. It was sent in by Ahmad Somali7, who says, with Werner and Ziyech already signed and the potential of Havertz coming in too, how soon do you think Chelsea will challenge? And we also had another question from Patrick who said, how do you think Timo Werner will fit into this Chelsea team? So we may as well just discuss Chelsea as a whole. First of all, let's chat about Timo Werner. We mentioned him very briefly on ERU in the week, Pato. What are your thoughts on the whole Timo Werner reportedly signing for Chelsea for £53 million?
Well, I think it's great business for Chelsea if they get it over the line. Like, we don't know for certain that he's signed yet. The rumours are that he's agreed a deal, but I think his release clause is still active until the 15th of June. So if he doesn't sign before then, I guess in theory somebody could come in and gazump Chelsea for him. But for 54 million, I mean, it's actually ridiculous, the quality of player that they're getting for that money. He's got 25 goals and 8 assists in the Bundesliga this season. That's in 30 appearances. The real question isn't whether he's good enough, it isn't whether he'll improve them, it's just how they'll fit him in. Because Tammy Abraham's actually been very, very good this season, and you feel a bit bad for him kind of getting benched. Unless they're planning to play two up front, but I'm not sure that is something that Lampard will do, though he has shown that he's quite keen to play extremely attacking formations so far this season. But Tammy Abraham's numbers have been very good. He's got 13 goals and 3 assists. His expected goals per 90 at 0.74, which is actually 12th in the Premier League. And it's slightly ahead of where Timo Werner was 2 years ago when he was Tammy's age. Werner now is obviously significantly ahead. He's on 1.1, but he is also playing in that extremely attacking Nagelsmann system. And so I kind of look at Tammy and I think there's kind of a lot of evidence that Tammy could be a starting long-term centre-forward for Chelsea. However, having the two of them is an extremely nice problem for Chelsea to have. And the real question is, who is going to end up dropping to the bench to make space for this? Like, you can play Timo Werner off the left or off the right. He's played in both positions, more off the left in the past. So you absolutely could find a way to get them both in. But then in order to do that, you're going to have to bench 2 out of Ziyech, Mount, Pulisic, and Hudson-Odoi. Assuming they don't re-sign Pedro Willian, which I don't think they will. And that's actually a little bit troubling for Chelsea, because obviously they've got Hudson-Odoi on 100k a week and a long-term contract. Pulisic only joined last summer and has been very good when he's played. Ziyech is yet to arrive. Mount, I think we all assume, would be one of the people to make way. But it's quite difficult to work out how everyone's going to get the right number of minutes and how you're going to keep everyone happy. That's going to be a significant task for Frank Lampard. I mean, my preference would probably be, if I was just picking the best players there, I would probably play Werner off the left, Abraham through the middle, Ziyech at 10 and Pulisic on the right. And Hudson-Odoi would then be kind of your depth option. But to be honest with you, I'm not sure anybody really knows what Frank Lampard wants to do with this team. Like, how much money is he going to have left? If he has a ton of money left and he can go and get Ben Chilwell as a left back, then that might change things. Whereas maybe he's thinking, oh, I'll play a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2 if I don't have enough money to get Chilwell, so that I can kind of counteract the weaknesses of Marcus Alonso and Reece James. I don't know. It's I'm not really sure where this is going. And the rumours about Kai Havertz as well complicate matters even further, because if they go and get him, they're basically saying to all the guys who are there currently, literally all of them, like Tammy, Pulisic, Hudson-Odoi, Mason Mount, none of you are going to be serious starters for us next season. And that's a big turnover in one summer.
I do think though that Tammy has the quality to battle for that position, and I think he'll probably be bang up for it. I think the worry that I would have as a Chelsea fan is, Tammy's only got 2 years left on that deal. And if he is dropped next season and he goes out of the back of next season with 1 year left on his deal and maybe played a bit part role in the season because of Timo Werner's arrival, then you might have a problem. Because I read an Athletic report just doing a little bit of research for this topic today, and they were talking about how Tammy's been asking for sort of similar money to Callum Hudson-Odoi, and rightly so. You know, he's more of a proven name in that first team now than Callum is. And with the arrival of Timo Werner, his camp now may want a similar sort of package to what Timo Werner's arriving on if he's produced at this level already for 10 months. And that's rumoured to be around £175,000 a week, which I would be surprised if Chelsea offer Tammy Abraham at this stage. So I think the contract might be a bit of a problem, but I do back Lampard to fit them both into the same team. I think this might be more of an issue, to be honest with you, for Christian Pulisic, who's played well when he's had the chance, but he has been in and out of the team thanks to injuries and thanks to Frank Lampard's squad selection. And I think if he's going to play anywhere, Timo Werner, it's going to be as that sort of inside left forward, playing a little bit like how he has at Leipzig. Because obviously Poulsen's played up top at times for Leipzig as well, and they've kind of formed quite a nice little duo that I could see Timo Werner and Tammy Abraham forming as well. And I just wonder where Pulisic fits in, if not on that left. I don't know whether he's actually going to play him out wide right. I think that's exactly where Hakim Ziyech's been brought in. I remember the interview when Frank Lampard was talking about Ziyech's arrival, talking about how his ability to cut back and whip those balls in with his left foot and his right foot as well. So I'm not too sure whether he wants to play him at 10. And we know how much he loves Mason Mount. So I would be worried if I was Christian Pulisic, just because I've been there a season now and I wasn't the first name on the team sheet in that wide position. And sometimes Willian was getting picked over me. So I would be concerned if I was Christian Pulisic too.
Yeah, I mean, their whole squad should be sort of reinvigorated by this signing. I just think it's so impressive of Chelsea. No one really saw it coming till last week. They've gone out and signed one of the best young strikers in the world. And the best thing about Timo Werner is I don't think he's a particularly selfish player. He's very comfortable playing as a 2. He's done it with Schick, he's done it with Poulsen, and he's never, demanded the number 9 shirt, wanting to play up front by himself. So I actually think it's fine for Tammy. But as you say, it'll put everyone else on alert in that front line. And the fact they also managed to get Ziyech in February before anyone had really raised an eyebrow. People had talked about Ziyech for years. But at 27, he looks just sort of ready for that step out of the Eredivisie. It's a bit like when Bruno Fernandes joined United. You're always a little bit sceptical because their numbers look so fantastic in, the Liga NOS in the case of Bruno Fernandes. But Ziyech has been phenomenal for so long in the Eredivisie now. So signed from Twente in 2016, 38 goals and 51 assists in 112 Eredivisie games. That's 0.8 goal contributions per game over there. And also really started turning it up in the Champions League as well. I think it was 12 goal contributions in his last 17 games in that competition for Ajax, who prior to last year hadn't done anything in the Champions League for quite a while. So really sort of dragged them to a new level alongside the likes of De Ligt, De Jong, Tadic, etc. last year. Obviously this campaign didn't go quite as well, but he still had a great group stage, Ziyech. So I think, for me, I think they'll stick with the 4-3-3 this year, because I think one of the strengths of their side this year, not in terms of goal output or attacking unit, but Kante, Jorginho, Kovacic worked really well as a 3 at times, and you saw the best out of Kovacic in particular playing on the left-hand side of that 3. I'd be pretty loath to go 4-2-3-1 with those 4 attacking players who, while they do press a certain amount, the lack of protection, particularly with Kante having his injury problems this year, potentially with Jorginho leaving, I think it just leave you open to a few issues there. So I'd stick with 4-3-3, Werner on the left, Tammy down the middle, Ziyech on the right, and Mason Mount coming in if Frank wants to change formation alongside Christian Pulisic. I don't think there's any guarantee that Pulisic will walk straight back into the side having been out since January. He needs to finish the season, I think, exceptionally well. So there's loads of options for Lampard, and it can only be a good thing. But I feel like these rumours with Havertz are slightly confusing, to be honest. I don't know why you sign Ziyech and have Pulisic and Mount on your books and then sign Havertz. He makes far more sense as a Bayern Munich signing as backup to Lewandowski for me. I don't see where Havertz fits in with this, especially when you've got issues at left back and goalkeeper. So I'm a bit confused by that, to be honest.
And they've got other guys as well. Like we're not even talking about Barkley or Loftus-Cheek. And Loftus-Cheek, I imagine, is going to get minutes when he comes back. Like, I understand what you're saying about 4-3-3, but for me, I would probably drop Jorginho. Like, Jorginho's been good this season, but I'm not sure he adds that much more progression than Kovacic. And Kante, when he's fit, is obviously nailed on as a starter. I actually do think that the defensive work that Ziyech does in combination with Kovacic and Kante, who do an awful lot, should be enough, so long as you upgrade that left-back spot. If you don't upgrade that left-back spot, I completely agree. Then I'd probably want to find an extra man in the midfield just to give some cover.
Yeah, I would agree, but I think we can all agree anyway, it's an unbelievable problem to have. Like, if you're Frank Lampard, all of the best teams in the world have these depth problems, and on the surface, everybody's like, oh, this is going to be an issue, but then when it comes to reality, it just turns out to be a massive positive. Look at Manchester City trying to fight between Gabriel Jesus and Aguero, and then you look at someone like Tottenham when Harry Kane picked up an injury and they're in a world of trouble. So it's a massive positive to have it. And I agree that Havertz, I don't understand the move for Kai Havertz at all. I don't know whether there's any truth in it, to be honest with you, but especially given he's been playing as almost sort of like this false nine at times at Leverkusen, quite advanced, almost as a striker, and using that physicality to bring others into the game. I would be super surprised if that was to happen. And I think Kai Havertz, I've just got images of him ending up at PSG, to be honest with you, when they move on, the likes of Edinson Cavani. And that sort of area becomes slightly more vacant, especially if Mbappe was to leave. So I've got images of that happening. But that left-back slot, I think, is an interesting one worth chatting about a little bit, because there's a lot of news about Ben Chilwell this week, wasn't there? That Leicester are going to be asking for the same fee they got for Harry Maguire, sort of around the £80 million mark. He's obviously only 23 years old still. And he's had a good season, but I don't think he's had an £85 million season. In that left-back slot, and I think they'd be paying a serious surplus just because of the sort of homegrown nature, buying from a direct rival in the same way Man United did. So for me, I don't think Chilwell is the right man for Chelsea just because of that fee, Pat. What do you think?
Yeah, personally I agree as well. Like, if we were talking half that fee, I'd probably be okay with it. I like Chilwell. He's very young. He's got a lot of minutes at his age. He is homegrown. He's quick. He's pretty decent in attack, but when you look at his numbers, and to be honest, when you watch him, it is hard to see what exactly Chelsea think he's going to add. Like, I don't think that Leicester's defense is like stabilized because of him. I think he gets a lot of protection from Wilfred and Ndidi, and you can see that in the numbers. He makes under 3 tackles and interceptions a game. He doesn't complete many dribbles. I mean, genuinely, like under a dribble a match. And 1.2 key passes is good, but it's not like spectacular. And so I kind of wonder what they think he's going to give them. It's entirely possible he arrives and he's a perfect fit and just like takes off and everything is fine. It's also entirely possible he arrives, replicates these numbers, and that they still kind of have an issue in that position, but they've spent a world-beating fee to try and solve it. And I mean, there were rumours that I was reading about today that Chelsea are interested in Achraf Hakimi. And to be honest with you, I don't think Hakimi is going to want to go to Chelsea and be their left back, given that I think he'd prefer to play right back or right wing, and that is what he's done this season for Dortmund, and he's been amazing. I also think he probably thinks he can aim higher, like get a shot at Real Madrid as the long-term right back there, as Carvajal ages out and with Odriozola out at Bayern Munich on loan. But I do think there probably are better options out there at this price point. Like, if we were talking half the price and everybody else was going to be 20, 25, then maybe I'd say we'll pay it because at least he's homegrown and he's young. But given his stats, given the protection he gets in that team, and given the money that they're being asked for, I personally would not do this. On the other hand, it is kind of weird that Chelsea have made 2 really good moves in the transfer market so far, and they haven't actually addressed their weaknesses at all. Like, Timo Werner... Getting another striker in is great, like, don't get me wrong, and getting in Ziyech is great as well, but actually those aren't their weaknesses. I don't think any of us would say those are their weaknesses. Their problems are left back and goalkeeper, and so now they need to go and prove they're as serious about addressing those problems as they are about finding depth in the front positions.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it will be a good signing, Ben Chilwell, in the same way Harry Maguire was a good signing for Manchester United and definitely will improve that team, but it would just be an overpayment, right, Dukes?
Yeah, I mean, 85 million, he's not anywhere close to being worth 85 million. I totally agree. And also, he hasn't been great in 2020, as in the calendar year. He had that discipline issue, Hamza Chowdhury and him missed training. Not trying to say he's a bad egg by any stretch of imagination, but his form didn't really pick up. He got completely... Remember him having a pretty bad game. I think it was against Man City, actually. So hasn't really performed against the top 4 opposition, or top 6 opposition, I should say. So we'll see. But
and that form, sorry to interrupt, that form has also coincided with that Wilfred and Ndidi injury at times, isn't it? Which would be worrying for me.
Yeah, for sure. That's a big concern. But I've seen people make jokes on Twitter about, Chelsea maybe looking like a completely lopsided team next year. So good in attack, but so weak at defence. But I actually think their defence is pretty underrated compared to what people think it is. They only concede 9.5 shots a game, which is the 4th best in Europe. Only Man City, Getafe and Real concede fewer. Their issue is they've got a very average goalkeeper. And I agree with Pat, that would be the first thing I'd do. I wouldn't go and get £80 million Havertz or even £85 million Chilwell. I think that I'd rather work with Emerson and Marcus Alonso for another year and just get a good keeper in. It doesn't even need to be a world beater, a Donnarumma, a Onana, a Strakosha, anyone, to just sort out their key issue, because I don't see them challenging, which is what this is all about really, because the signing of Werner and Ziyech, that's about challenging in 2 to 3 years' time, and they are not going to be able to do that unless Kepa becomes a very good goalkeeper overnight, effectively. That would be my first point of call.
But just to defend Kepa a little bit, I'll just defend him a little bit, just to play sort of devil's advocate about Kepa. I think he's going to be incredibly hard to move on because they signed him for such a ridiculous fee in that sort of panic buy situation. And do you not think there are sort of pangs of early David De Gea about Kepa? David De Gea's numbers in the first couple of seasons were particularly average. He wasn't ripping trees up like he did or has been doing since then, and there was kind of calls for Anders Lindegaard to take the starting jersey over him at times. And we say, they could just bring in a good goalkeeper. Do you not think Kepa, if you gave him a bit of time, could become that good goalkeeper? Because what's the point in losing 40 million to then sign another goalkeeper that's going to come in and be a little bit better maybe in the immediate, but it's not a huge upgrade?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely have to take a loss, and I see your point, but whereas Kepa is, 25, 26? I think David De Gea was 20, 21, had a lot more time to develop, and David De Gea's issue when he first arrived wasn't his fundamentals of goalkeeping. He was pretty solid. He was a very good shot stopper still. He had good angles. He came off his line well. He just wasn't physically ready for the Premier League. That doesn't seem like that's Kepa's issue, really. He's just a pretty average shot stopper who can pull off incredible saves like any good goalkeeper, but his base level of consistency is just so much lower than most other keepers in the Premier League. And I just don't think they would be better if they had Nick Pope in goal. So it doesn't even need to be a particularly glamorous signing. I just feel like take a 40 million, 50 million pound loss on Kepa, whatever you can do for the long-term future of your club in 2 to 3 years, because otherwise I just think these signings will slightly go to waste.
Yeah, okay. I think that's fair enough. Is there any other sort of areas we think that Chelsea will look to identify and strengthen? I think they're pretty solid in that right-back slot with Reece James. What about a centre-half?
People have talked a lot about the centre-half position, but I think given the amount of money they've spent, it's unlikely they go big there, especially seeing as actually when everyone's fit, they've got pretty good centre-backs, and I'd imagine that at the beginning of the season, they are conceding some big chances, like straight up the gut. I do think that having a fully fit Conte will solve some of those issues. Plus they've got people coming through who are going to be able to make the difference there. If Reece James is going to be the long-term right back, then you can start playing Azpilicueta as a centre back again. I can't remember his name. Who is the young guy from the academy who's been playing centre back for them?
Tomori.
Yeah, Tomori, I think has been fantastic. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's not been flawless, but for a very young centre-back who's also homegrown, I think that he's a really exciting prospect. And as we know, Frank Lampard loves him. So I think that they're far more likely to say, we're going to give you minutes than go out and spend big money. Maybe if they can get someone cheap, there are rumours that Thiago Silva might get a short-term contract offer or whatever, maybe something like that if you really must. But I actually think that the idea of Tomori, Azpilicueta and Rudiger as your kind of principal centre-back choices next season is still pretty damn good, to be honest with you. Plus Christensen, plus Zuma, it's not too bad.
Plus Ethan Ampadu out on loan as well, that can also come back at some stage. And then the central midfield, I think we're all in agreement, there's a pretty strong area. Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Kovacic, Kante, obviously Billy Gilmore coming through there as well. Do you think they'll sell Ross Barkley, look to shift Ross Barkley on this summer? I think that'll probably be an area for me that I would be addressing fairly soon, looking to shift him to. I saw rumours of him going and Batshuayi going to Newcastle to the tune of about £50 million. I think both of those players are players that will probably be moved on this summer.
Yeah, I think they're definitely the more expendable members of the squad. It's a bit of a shame with Ross Barkley because he performed particularly well. I think it was in the latter part of Maurizio Sarri's reign. Hasn't really ever got going at Chelsea consistently. There's obviously a really talented player in there, but it's just his injury issues consistently. And he's just it's quite a sad case of what might have been with Ross Barkley, I always think. Because I do enjoy watching him play when he's at his best. But yeah, if Newcastle come in with, 25 to 30 million pounds, I think you definitely accept that.
Yeah, I agree. Right, should we move on to some quick-fire questions then? Because this one is sort of on the same wavelength as this Chelsea chat from Nikhil Arial. He says, what are the positions that need urgent changing for each side in the Prem to meet their realistic goals next season? We won't go through all 20 teams, but is there any obvious standouts? For me, I think Tottenham Hotspur need a centre-back fairly urgently this coming summer, just with that whole Jan Vertonghen issue there, and I think they need a good centre-back as well, because I think Toby Alderweireld may also see a little bit of a decline next season. So I'm sure they'll go for a centre-back. Where they shop, I don't really know. I think centre-back's one of the hardest areas to pick up at the moment, to be honest with you, and you're going to see some pretty heavy prices. The likes of, what's their Upamecano's release clause? Is it upwards of 60?
I think it's 50-ish this summer. It was a lot more last year.
If I was Tottenham, I would for sure be having a look at Upamecano. I saw links with Tottenham and Kurt Zouma this week. Very Jose Mourinho sort of move, but I don't think that's very realistic. I don't know whether you boys think you have any names that could fill that Tottenham centre-back hole.
There are a few guys who are available out of Ligue 1, but I guess that if you want somebody to come in and be a dedicated starter, immediately, you maybe want to look more in the kind of 23 to 26 range as opposed to the 18 to 23 range. I don't know. I mean, if they want to slap down the money, I think that Upamecano is probably one of the best options out there, despite his young age, because he is experienced. But they could also go and maybe try and get a Kanji off Dortmund or something. I'm not saying it'd be easy, but these are moves that might be worth considering. Even if you went to Leipzig and tried to get Willy Orban instead of Konate or Upamecano, that wouldn't be the worst, because they are going to need somebody who's ready. They've got Davinson Sanchez. Davinson Sanchez is like their youngish, very talented centre-back. He needs to play alongside someone who's a bit more of a known quantity, probably. The last thing that Jose Mourinho is the last manager who's going to go into next season with like two centre-backs who are both under 25, I think. Yeah,
I do think as well that it's going to be difficult to get players out of clubs like Dortmund this summer, especially if they manage to sift Jadon Sancho. Like, if they take that 100 million, they're probably going to keep hold of any other assets they've got at their disposal. Is there any other players that teams that need drastically changing of a specific position, Dukes, that spring to your mind?
I was just having a think in the top six, and obviously, Man City's weaknesses at centre-back and probably left-back need addressing. If they lost Leroy Sané, I wouldn't actually think it's like a do or die whether they get another winger in. I'd try and get a centre-back or a left-back thrown in. There was talks about Luca Hernandez being thrown into that Bayern deal, which I think would be a great pickup for them, given his flexibility at left-back and centre-back. I think Man United could really do with a defensive midfielder. If they keep Pogba, I really do think a defensive midfielder with, a combination of Fred, Bruno, Pogba, McTominay, suddenly, one really good defensive midfielder, a Zakaria, even a Højbjerg, someone like that, Mikel Merino, someone like that, could really just lead Man United up the table so much. And I actually think that they're ready for, a very good effort at third next year if they get a defensive midfielder in, depending on the strength of City, maybe second. So, yeah, I'm intrigued to see how United are in these final 9 or so games, because they've got a fully fit squad for the first time in a while. Pogba and Rashford are back. There's really no excuses. So I really want to see them finish on a bang, get in Sancho this summer and try and get a defensive midfielder in. And then, who knows what could happen next year. Yeah,
it's definitely going to be interesting, I think, next few games, just to see how Ollie fits Bruno and Pogba into the same team, to be honest with you. Because I agree with you. I think that Pogba probably will end up staying at Manchester United now, just because Real Madrid aren't going to want to spend the 150 it's going to take to get him out after COVID. and how you fit Bruno into that team. I think the way you do it is probably end up having Paul Pogba as sort of like a deep line distributor, a little bit of a playmaker from deep, and playing him in that position. But I totally agree, yeah, defensive midfielder for Manchester United, fairly obvious hole in there, and one that I'm sure will be filled, whether or not with the right player remains to be seen given Manchester United's recent recruitment. I saw a few links to, is it Camavinga at Rennes, that were quite interesting. But yeah, anybody outside the top six? I'm trying to think outside the top six of teams that have obvious holes in their team.
Yeah, sorry. Wolves could probably do with getting in a number 9. Now Catrone's gone back to Italy. Raul Jimenez, if he's left with a long-term injury, it's kind of similar to Jamie Vardy. They've obviously got Jota and Adama Traore can play up front, etc. But another number 9 for Wolves, possibly some depth in the fullback areas there as well. Maybe start thinking about a long-term replacement for João Moutinho, although that's going to be exceptionally hard because still at 35 he's just performing so well. So that's a team, an area for Wolves. I mean, in the bottom half there's sort of teams that you could do with quite a lot of work. I think if Aston Villa stay up, I think their defence needs a major makeover. Same with Bournemouth as well. Suddenly they've got sort of holes all over the park. So it's going to be a busy summer for lots of teams with potentially not that much money to fix quite a few holes.
Yeah, West Ham centre mid as well. Just before we move on to the next one, is a pretty obvious one. The next one then, quickfire from Tom, says, who is the most obscure footballer you're a big fan of? For me, it's Amir Zaki, just for that one season he banged. So has anybody got any really rogue, weird shouts that just slot straight in there?
I enjoyed Michu's season at Swansea. That was a lot of fun. I also enjoyed Adel Taarabt when he was at QPR as well. He was always good fun to watch. Who else has just come in for? Amir Zaki was at a time when Wigan were quite fun to watch actually, with like Henry Camara as well, and then like Figueroa at the left back as well. They had some quite fun players.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I loved Figueroa as well. I'm sure it's Figueroa who banged from the halfway line, wasn't it, for Wigan? On that left peg. Yeah, I did like Figueroa as well, to be fair. I don't know, man. This is a really hard question, I think. Like, most obscure footballer. I don't think that many footballers are that obscure anymore, because social media is just like everything anybody does is suddenly posted with 1,000 retweets and 500,000 views. I'll tell you what, let's move straight on to the personal question then. Do you know what? I've got one written in front of me, but I'm going to rip it up, because I've got my own personal question this week, dudes. So this is coming from me. My personal question is, I want your thoughts on the whole Sunderland situation. Obviously, denied promotion because of League One ending early. Let's just get your thoughts on Sunderland, League One, another season in.
Yeah, it's pretty bleak. Sorry, you were breaking up quite a lot there, but I think I heard Sunderland and League One, so I've vaguely got the gist of it. It's pretty depressing, really. I've been abused all morning on Twitter because I said I was frustrated with the situation, and I'm not really complaining because Sunderland, we didn't deserve to go up this year. We were a complete mess, but the fact remains that we've missed out. We were 3 points off second, and we've missed out on promotion. Effectively, we were 4th with 3 games before the break. We failed to win any of those. We finish up in 8th. We played a game more. We're not going up. We can't get into the playoffs. It's another season of just absolute abject disappointment, and I'm actually tired of League One. Like, it is absolute shite. As a league, it is a dreadful standard of football, and I was so up for us going up this year, and we're just not going to do it again, and we're up for sale once again. It just keeps on going round, just the fucking circle of Sorry, I've never sworn so much on one Football Daily video, but it's really difficult not to. It's just been absolutely terrible from start to finish, and now it turns out our owners bought the club using our parachute payments. So, well, literally, how worse could it get for a football club? We got lost in the last minute last year in the playoff final. This year it's been cancelled by coronavirus. Not blaming anyone for that, bar ourselves. We were useless this year. Sacked Jack Ross far too early. Phil Parkinson doesn't have a clue what day of the week it is, and we're not going up again. I'm fed up of it, to be honest. But yeah,
So Dougie, are the playoffs taking place?
Yeah, the playoffs are taking place with the teams who are in it already. But the absolute, farce of it is that teams in the playoff voted to cancel the season because they were already in the playoffs. So the vote wasn't fair. But I mean, I can't really complain. As I said 1,000 times, Sunderland weren't good enough to go up this year. Even if we'd finished up in the playoffs, I'm sure we would have found a way to tit it up. So we'll see what happens next year. But I'm fed up of it, really.
That was well worth it. That was well worth going off script for a personal question about Sunderland. Right, that's all the time we've got on Sunday Vibes this week. If you want to get your questions answered next week, tweet them to us during the week. Me, Pat and Dougie and Chris Hamill as well. Lads, anything to plug? Pato, anything to plug?
Yeah, the podcast will obviously be going live in a couple of days. It's going out the day before the Premier League returns. So we will be discussing the return of the Premier League, the big games to watch out for, and of course the Champions League race and the relegation battle, seeing as the title race, I think we all assume, is basically wrapped up.
Definitely. Dukes, anything to plug?
Well, speaking of Champions League race, we filmed another episode of the Football Pyramid this week. It was Jacko versus McCubbin. Very entertaining episode. That dropped on EFD yesterday, so go check that out.
Yeah, I'd like to apologise to everybody for my absolutely disgraceful performance on that show a couple of weeks ago that left me straddling around in League 2 at the end of it. Absolutely shocking, and I rightfully got abused in the comments for that one. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, everybody. We'll catch you later.